This video is for you if you've always wanted to read Atomic Habits but never had the time to. Like if you have read the book, and more importantly, I don't think you need to read the book. This summary will be more than you'll need to grasp the concept of the book. I will say though, if you can get the book and have the time, get it because it's such an easy read. If that's reason enough for you to read a book, like you're just looking for something to read, then it's fine. But if you genuinely don't have the time and have more interesting things to read or look into, I don't think it's worth it. Like many nonfiction books, I love nonfiction. It repeats itself, it insists on itself.
It insists upon itself, Lois.
What?
It insists upon itself.
What does that even mean?
It takes forever getting in.
There's some important nuggets in there, but I feel a good summary can capture the point in 25 minutes. By the end of this video, you understand how habits work, what motivates you to do things, what makes you to do things that you don't want to do, and what makes you not do the things that you know you want to do or you know you have to do, like exercising. And more importantly, you will know how to build these habits and sustain them because everyone can eat well for a day, can go to the gym for 2 weeks, but can you do it for 50 years, so the remaining 50 years of your life? No. So first things first, we're going to learn how habits work. And James Clear very geniusly divides habits into four stages: cue, craving, response, reward. So he calls the cue and craving the problem phase, and response and reward the solution phase. What does that mean? The cue is what introduces a problem. So let's think food. We'll think about it for both healthy food and unhealthy food. So let's think unhealthy food first because I feel that might be easier to explain. Cue is it's a trigger that initiates you into the stage of acting upon your problem. So think you're walking home and you see an ad for KFC or McDonald's, or you smell some really nice food and you're like, hey, I would like to have that. Craving is obviously self-explanatory. It is the craving that I've established that I want that, because you can have a cue and decide to ignore it. So that means you've not gone to that second stage. But if you smell something and you're like, you know what, I want that, then you've gone on to craving. So the stages are distinct from each other. And why this is called the problem phase is because at the end of this phase is when you establish that I have a problem in quotes, obviously, but problem just implies like you have a desire like that needs to be solved. So if you go through from cue to craving, then the problem is established. Like I want KFC 8-piece bucket with a side of fries, a Coca-Cola, and some coleslaw. And the last stage is response and reward at the solution phase, because this is when you get into problem solving mode and decide, hey, I'm going to solve this problem by. So in this case, the response might be either you pulling out your delivery and ordering the food, or you walking to a McDonald's or a KFC to get the food. And the reward is obviously you enjoying the food. The food tastes good because you probably had it before, or because the cue tells you that, oh, this is going to taste good judging from how it smells. Hence why this is a solution phase. So if we use that healthy food example now, in that case, the cue will not be as strong. For example, if you saw a beautiful salad, if you're not into salads, honestly, I don't think this is going to work. But I think you're now starting to understand why you're more likely to eat the unhealthy food than the healthy food. It is willpower, but the odds are stacked against you, is what I'm trying to say. But let's say for some reason you saw a beautiful salad, let's think a Greek salad with a block of fat. You saw that, you craved it, and then the response is you going out to get it, and then the reward is you getting it. TikTok, for example, cue is boredom, craving is, oh, I'm bored, I want to scroll some TikTok, I want to have a laugh. Response is you pulling out your phone, and the reward is obviously you kicking your life away while you watch some stupid cut videos. I think this is really important, and even though I consider myself a disciplined person, this is something I had never thought about in this way, but I think I was practicing. Like I said, there's so many Atomic Habits summaries, and I've had people reference the book, so I was applying those concepts in my life, but I had never known the foundation of where they come from, which is why for me it was worth it to read the book, because I was like, if I agree with everything in the book, I'll read it. But if you're not in the same position, I don't think you necessarily need to read the book. So before we get into the part where James Clear uses this framework to build good habits, he has a chapter in there on systems, which I really enjoyed. Basically, he says to build systems instead of setting goals. This is something I strongly believe in and I use. You've probably heard of the saying that a goal without a plan is a wish. And I think this is what he's trying to do away with. Setting goals, anyone can set a goal. And he makes a really good point of the people who work out regularly and the people who don't have the same goal. So clearly, Setting goals is not the problem here. Any idiot can set a goal. So when you wake up in the morning or on December 31st and set New Year's resolutions, you're not any different from everyone else that wants those same things. However, what is going to make you different is if you set up a system on how to achieve said goals. And this isn't from James Clear, this is from me. And how I like to set systems is basically when you set the goal, you ask yourself how. And you don't even have to do it just once, you can do it over and over again. So think if you want to lose 10 pounds, the people who gain 50 pounds in a year and the people who lose 30 pounds in a year, they all have the same goal. The goal is not what set them apart. But the people who lose the 10 pounds are the people who go ahead and say how. So if you say, I want to lose 10 pounds, how? Going to the gym. How? Again. Or I need to sign up to the gym, that means. Or I need to make sure I do go to the gym. How many times? 3, 4 times? And then you're getting out of that stage of just being a person with a wish, and now you're starting to set up that system. And the key element to a system is that the solutions have to be repeatable. If you think about your digestive system, for example, it digests food if you eat 3 times a day, and it does it over and over again from the day you're born to the day you die if you don't get ill, which now I realize is a miracle. Oh my god, how lucky are we to have such beautiful bodies that just support us in that way every day. Getting emotional just thinking about it because I love food. Anyway, James Clear also has a lovely quote that I love here, that in the book, which says, you do not rise to the level of your goals, but fall down to the level of your systems. If you have a goal to become like a billionaire, or if you have a goal to become a millionaire, the difference in that does not matter. What's going to matter is the systems you set in place. So if you have no systems, basically, obviously, nothing is going to happen. And if you have a really good system, then you're not going to fall that hard because you're going to be that much better at getting to your goal. And if you obviously have a really bad, faulty system, then you might as well not have any, unless, of course, you learn from it and move on to improve the system. Now, moving on to how to build better habits using that framework we discussed before. It has 4 principles: make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. So if we look at the 4 stages we talked about, make it obvious is make the cue obvious or make the cue more obvious. Make it attractive is make yourself crave it, basically, introduce the craving. Make it easy is to make the response easy, and make it satisfying is to just make the reward more satisfying or to introduce a new reward. This is obviously the reverse for bad habits. Make it inobvious, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. But first, let's think, because I think it's harder to build a new habit than to eliminate a bad habit, depending on what it is, but depending on what you're trying to break, and of course, depending on who you are. So let's first talk about that, and then we'll move on to breaking bad habits thereafter. So, how do you make a good habit obvious? I think I've used the exercise point too much, but I also feel like it's the one thing that applies to all of us. But maybe I can use food, which I also feel is one in the same thing because it's about a healthy lifestyle. But what else can I use that is general to more people? Taking care of your hair. Most guys don't care about their hair. Hair, I barely care about my hair. I just woke up and blow dried it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I'm gonna have to stick to fitness, but maybe I'll give 2 examples of something else that might not apply to everyone. Cute. So remember, this is your trigger. So the assumption is that you're going to either be going about your day, or the time to do something is going to come, but you're going to need that nudge, that trigger, to push you into even thinking or considering doing the thing you want to do. So for fitness, for example, you could have a picture maybe of someone who is your pose, or you would have a picture. There's this main doctor from the show about overweight people. I've seen people use his picture like on their fridges or something, which I think is a bit extreme, but also hilarious.
Dietitian come talk to you?
Yes, sir. Can you talk to her about the food that they've been sitting in here?
Well, I don't know why you don't like the food that everybody else eats in the world.
I haven't really eaten nothing since I've been here.
You're not gonna fade away. You're gonna be fine.
I still have to eat something.
No. You're eating the food that belongs to the next 4 years. So you're saying you gained 60 pounds of water on a car right here because you're sitting up? That's not reality.
Honestly.
But cues, I think, in many cases should be visual and should be in a place where you are not going to miss them. For example, at the end of the workday at 5, you have to shut down your work computer. So maybe you can set your work computer sunscreen. It's getting sunny. So your work computer screensaver to have a cue that forces you to go to the gym. Now, I don't know if you're going to put a sexy picture on your work computer, which you probably shouldn't do, but Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. If you work from home, then I don't see what the problem is. Yeah, so that can be your cue that after work you need to go to the gym. There are alarms that show a picture. There are apps where you have an alarm that can show a picture. So you could have an alarm either in the morning if you want to go to the gym in the morning, or in the evening that plays when the alarm goes off. That picture's like, hey, it's your cue to go to the gym. And the cue has to be enticing. It cannot just be, no, it can be if you're disciplined enough, but if obviously, I think everyone knows that in the morning or in the evening you have to go to the gym. So clearly, just knowing the fact that you have to go is not working. But if you have something that's more enticing, if you're vain like me, I'm a little bit vain, but unfortunately, vanity in the short term is just a much stronger motivation to exercise than working on your health, which is how I did it. And now I'm at the point where I work out for my health. And how do I know that? Because when a week comes, I can only exercise one day. I do go in for that one day, but when I was exercising just to be that much more hotter, I'd be like, wait, what's one day going to change? Yeah, so I do feel like I exercise so I did what needed to be done to get myself into the habit, and now I feel like I'm in a good place where I can do it for the looking better. I think is just as valid a reason as any. Anyway, habit stacking, which I'm sure you've heard of, also builds on this principle. You're basically getting a habit or an activity that you already do and then stacking onto it the activity you want to introduce into your life. So that activity you're already doing becomes the cue for you to do something else. Think you have to wake up in the morning unless you're literally dead. So when you wake up in the morning, you have a glass of water, which I do every morning and I've done for the past like 10 years, which helped break my Coke addiction. Coca-Cola, not the other one. I thought I was, oh, I'm so addicted to Coke. But I just found that if I took a glass of water in the morning, I was just thirsty in the afternoon, I don't have that problem anymore, the Coca-Cola problem. You have to have breakfast every morning if you do. I don't mind if you do. So if you're trying to take your supplements every day, why not have your supplements with breakfast? You have to go to bed every night. If you're trying to read more, why not read a book before you go to bed? Element that works well on cues is environmental setup. If you use visual elements in your environment, they can also act as cues to help you achieve the habit you want to achieve. That's why my books are out here, not locked away somewhere, because every time I look here, I'm like, hey, I would have stuck to grow, so I need to read. And I've been reading more since I brought them out here and took them out of the cupboard. My water glass is always on my nightstand, even when it's empty, because when I see it, I'm like, have I drunk water today? Do I need to fill that up when I come to bed to sleep? If it wasn't there, I would maybe sleep and forget in the morning. I'd be like, oh, I need water. But because it's there, even when it's empty, I'm like, oops, what's in there? If it's empty, then I go and fill it before I go to bed. Also, sometimes I end up drinking water while I feel it's double in to for the price of one. So the next stage is to make it attractive. This I feel is obvious, but also might be misinterpreted. But the best example I can think of is how advertising works. If you look at how KFC advertises their food, as long as you're aware of fried food, which most people are, you will want that food after you see their advert, because they're trying to make it as attractive as possible. They're trying to show you what you're missing out on if you don't eat their food. Think apples are made shinier because people are just more likely to buy them than if they are dull, they don't have that wax on top, which is a little bit messed up if you think about it. Yeah. So what you want to do is that you want to put yourself in a position where you start to crave that thing. And just to give you hope, since we've talked about exercise in the previous point, is you can get to a point where you crave good habits. 5 years ago, I used to have salads maybe once a month, and I didn't go for it. I just preferred cooked food. Just it's a cultural preference. But now I do crave salads. I do crave exercise. I didn't go running on Tuesday, and I felt terrible. And I was like, oh no, I need to make up for that. I have to go running sometime in the week, and I don't even enjoy running. But because I'm so used to moving, my body just wants that. It's important to remember that some things, yes, are more difficult, but your body just craves what it's used to. So all this work we're doing is just for that initial phase. After you get out of this phase, your body will start to crave whatever it is you've introduced and gotten it used to. If you just went 6 weeks drinking water every day in the morning, on the 43rd day, when the experiment is finished, your body will wake up expecting water and will demand it. You will feel it in your body. If you hate fruits for whatever reason, if you hate size, will take a little bit longer, I'm not gonna lie, but what I always recommend for this is to join classes or to get a trainer. Once you do that for 6 months, when the 7th month comes, you will not be the same couch potato you are right now, because your body will crave that movement, and you'll find you might not necessarily be enthusiastic about going to the gym. I dread going to the gym every day, but I also remember that feeling of when I don't go to the gym and I'm like, you know what? I want to go to the gym. Yeah. We cannot talk about making things attractive without talking about the D word, dopamine. Now, I don't want to say too much on dopamine because I don't want to overstate, I don't want to overspeak, and I'm not obviously a neuroscientist, but I just want to emphasize one point. Dopamine is not released in response to you getting what you want, it's released in anticipation of you actually getting it. That's the funny thing. I'm going to add a graph of the stages of releasing dopamine, and you see that the dopamine will come in before you get whatever it is, before you get the drugs, before you get the KFC, before you get whatever it is. So if you can find yourself in a position where you can anticipate that thing and want it, as long as you get there, that is when you get the biggest dopamine hit. It makes all the difference between liking and wanting something. So you might like something, but you don't want it, which is where most of you are. You like the idea of being fit, but you don't want to go to the gym. You'd rather sit on the couch and relax and chill, which is understandable. I'm not going to judge you for that. I think for the most part prefer that, but I just taught myself to something else, to try something that is different. So what you want to do is to make yourself want these good habits that you are trying to build. This actually reminds me of my favorite quote from Alfred Hitchcock, which is, "There is not terror in the bank, only in the anticipation." If you can make yourself anticipate this a little bit more, it's going to make you want to do these things that are seemingly difficult. And one way you can do that is that pairing with something maybe you enjoy. Think, for example, you only scroll TikTok when you're on the treadmill. So, yeah, you like to scroll TikTok, but you don't necessarily want to go to the gym. But if you pair them together, then you can do that. And this is different from habit stacking, because habit stacking, you're stacking on a habit that you already have, things you already do. But here you can pair two completely new things and do them together, one after the other. Yeah. But most likely together works best. So, there is no way the good one is happening without the more difficult one happening. This is also a good opportunity to use peer pressure. If you're struggling with exercise, why not exercise with your friends? If you're struggling with going to bed early, why not tell your partner that you're on this journey, and then just both of you be in bed by 9 so you can motivate each other? If you're struggling with saving money, why not save money together with someone so you can keep each other accountable? If you're struggling with studying, study with someone. So when you introduce someone into this, first of all, you're embarrassed to not do it. You're embarrassed not to do it in a way which makes it more attractive, but also seeing someone else do it makes you do it, makes you want to do it that more, because there have been studies that have been done that we follow the hard, not that we need anyone to tell us this. Have you seen how we dress? We see someone with a cute outfit and we try to recreate it for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And of course, this will be very important to also mention that you should surround yourself with the people who are doing the things that you want to do. If you want to be more fit, where they're hanging out. And of course, it's very difficult currently where we don't have any social lives anymore, but even digitally, you can do that. When I wanted to read more this year, the first thing I did was follow up a few book creators. Even though I might not necessarily read what they're reading or whatever, but whenever they come up on my page, I'm like, oof, I've not read this week. And that reminder is going to stay with me for the rest of the day when I'm deciding what to do after watching TV and I'm heading to bed. I'm like, you know what? I remember that I haven't read this week, so maybe I should get in a few 20 minutes of reading before I go to bed. Make it easy, I feel, is really self-explanatory. Just remove all the barriers that prevent you from doing the difficult thing. Think like a gym near you. Keep healthy food in the house that is ready to eat. So when you're hungry, you don't have to think about what healthy thing to eat. Let the money come out of your savings automatically instead of you having to do it manually. So you don't even have to think twice about to leave your hair routine in the bathroom. So when it's time to wash your hair, you can get down to it instead of having to scramble and find everything. He'll even have a predetermined hair routine so you don't have to figure it out when the time comes to take care of your hair. I'm sure you've heard of that quantity versus quality study where a professor told two groups of students. One was to take the best photo possible, and then the other was to take as many photos as possible. And what they found actually was that the group that took as many photos as possible was the one that had the better picture, like at the end when they compared the two. And James Clear says that this is because they just made it easy. If someone just says take as many pictures as possible, you're going to get in that practice, you're going to get better, and with each iteration you're just going to make that 1% improvement that is going to make all the difference, while when you say take the best picture possible, you're going to obsess over the perfection and make it just that much more difficult for you to get started. There's a saying in neuroscience that neurons that fire together wire together. So the more repetitions you get in, the easier something is going to be for you to do. Think of when you're driving somewhere the first time, the journey feels longer and just much more hectic. But after 10 times, the journey just feels straightforward. It almost feels like one movement. It feels like you're driving down a straight road, even though you have to make corners because those corners are now coming to you as second nature. And even though it seems like I'm lying to you right now when I say this, trust me, if you teach yourself every morning that you have a fruit salad with oats and whatever, your neurons are going to wire and are going to fire and wire and teach yourself that, hey, in the morning, this is what we do. And once you do that for some time, it's just going to become that much easier. The problem is, of course, how do we get you to do it for all these times before it does get easy? But I just want to say this because most people think, oh, I have to go to the gym for the rest of my life. Oh, I have to save for the rest of my life as well. You don't. At 18, you'll be soon. So you won't have to, maybe for your children and grandchildren. I have to take care of my skin every day. It's not going to be the same level of difficulty after you do it 40, 50 times. Trust me. And at some point, that difficulty might go away, especially when you start to crave it, because then you just want it. And being without it will be more difficult than doing it. You might also want to try the 2-minute rule here, which I'm not sure who brought it up. I think actually Mel Robbins might be 1, 2, 3, but James Clear calls it the 2-minute rule, which is actually Mel Robbins is 1, 2, 3. Just count 1, 2, 3 and get up without thinking about anything. But James Clear's is a 2-minute rule, which you tell yourself, I'm going to do something for 2 minutes, and if I don't like it, I'll stop. This has not worked for me, I'll just say, because I'll know that I'm tricking myself. So in that way, it just never worked. But for some people, it does. But he recommends that doing something for 2 minutes and actually stopping, because then you will teach yourself that, hey, I can actually stop, instead of thinking, oh, I'm always doing this and I'm not going to stop, I'm just lying to myself. Finally, make it satisfying. I also feel this can be very direct. Either you introduce a reward or make the reward more intense. Think gym. The reward is that you feel really good, you feel like you're better than everyone, but it might not be enough. So why not eat something nice after the gym? Why not buy yourself a cute gym outfit? Or if you go to the gym for 6 weeks in a row, just reward yourself. You deserve it. Objectively, you deserve it for trying something hard and trying something new and actually sticking with it. So it shouldn't be that difficult to justify why you need to reward yourself. This is exactly how instant gratification gets you to do the things you don't want to do, because the reward is right there and it's immediate. So if you could get that same concept and put it towards more difficult things, and you can basically train your brain to react to difficult habits the way it reacts to things that give you instant gratification. Does that make sense? If scrolling on TikTok makes you happy within 1 second, like maybe let's say 40% happy, if you knew you could be 80% happy if you maybe read 30 pages of a book, I feel like you could be motivated to do that, because the 80% obviously will come from the nice feeling that you've done that, but also in addition to if you introduced a reward. The reward could even be TikTok itself. Hey, tricks are a great weapon to use. Tricks are a great trick to make things satisfying, because it's nice to have to tick off all those. I have a streak for my YouTube videos that I cancel out every time I post a video, and it's really satisfying to do that whenever I make one, and it has helped me stick to this. So it is that much more satisfying because obviously the views I'm getting. Now that we've talked about the habits, I want to get into some of my favorite points of the book, which I've not seen discussed in many other videos. And the first thing he talks about is choosing what habits to build. Basically, if you want to compete in something, he gives an example of Michael Phelps and another guy whose name I'll write it here. And they are in different sports, but it talks about the fact that they both have the same length of trouser inseam, basically trying to emphasize the fact that they have very different proportions despite being very different heights. The point being that when we are born, each of us has unfair advantages. In fact, I have a whole book about this. It's here. It's called The Unfair Advantage. Each of us has unfair advantages. So it's going to be that much more difficult for me to build a habit where the odds are stacked against me. I don't think I have a good voice. It's not terrible, but if I try to build a habit to become a singer, for example, or to go into music in general, I'm not best suited for that. So it's going to be that much more difficult for me to pick up that habit, just because when I compare myself to the people who are doing it well, they will likely be naturally gifted in that area, and I always feel behind. If I want to build a habit, for example, of bodybuilding, I don't have the greatest upper body strength. I do have quite a bit of muscle in my shoulders, but it's not the greatest. So if I decided to pursue that, it's going to also be that much more difficult for me to do. This video is getting too long, but in the Substack article that I'm going to write out some of the fields where you can identify your unfair advantages to what you could use to your advantage to get ahead in life instead of working against yourself all the time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you watch my next video, which will be summarizing the books I've read in Q1, and I'll also be talking about what to think about while going to a tennis game in the video after that, because I'll be going to the Monte Carlo Masters in Monaco. And I hope you have a lovely day.